So, now, kids, it's time for the ANAGLYPH jukebox. Take it away.
The distinguishing feature of Vaseline glass is that it glows under both fluorescent and black lights. Under fluorescent light, it glows yellow, and under black light, it glows green. Uranium oxide, uranium sulfide, and uranium dioxide are all used in various formulas to achieve this effect. Creating this distinctive glass began in the 1860s and continued until the 1950s. Cups, saucers, bowls, pitchers, dishes, vases, clocks, candlesticks, paperweights, and more were produced and rapidly collected. With the association to radioactivity changed by the atomic bomb, Vaseline glass began to fall from favor and was seen as dated and no longer modern in the 1950s. The music this time is by Ben Burney and his band playing Sweet Georgia Brown in 1924. Special note, this was the first ever saxophone solo recorded on film. Take it away. Welcome to today's edition of the ANAGLYPH Jukebox. You never know what you'll find on the old jukebox. Let's press B31. Okay, we've got Vaseline glass in 3D. Most kitchenware is not radioactive by design, but there are exceptions. Vaseline glass is one. Called by other names at times, uranium glass, yellow glass, lemon glass, canary, topaz, and even primrose, the distinguishing feature of Vaseline glass is that it glows under both fluorescent and black lights. Under fluorescent light, it glows yellow, and under black light, it glows green. Uranium oxide, uranium sulfide, and uranium dioxide were all used in various formulas to achieve this effect. The amount of radioactivity is minimal and harmless. The jukebox has had a small collection of Vaseline glass for years, and except for that super helpful sixth finger on each hand, there have been virtually no ill effects. Creating this distinctive glass began in the 1860s and continued until the 1950s. Cups, saucers, bowls, pitchers, dishes, vases, clocks, candlesticks, paperweights, and more were produced and rapidly collected. Their height of popularity was in the 1920s and 30s. Then, perhaps with the association to radioactivity changed by the atomic bomb, Vaseline glass began to fall from favor and was seen as dated and no longer modern in the 1950s. There are many books on Vaseline glass available, but the best one the jukebox has found is Sue C. Davis's Pictorial Guide to Vaseline Glass with photography by Bill McFarlane. All the images in this show are taken from it.
That was great. You to go to show you, that's why I tell people all the time, stay alive. Stay alive, because there's always something new to learn. I had no idea this existed. I had no idea. And then only to find out a place I've been going on vacation with a family for 35 years. Up the road is the museum of, basically they got a museum of Vaseline glass and uranium glass.
And actually, John, not just a museum, the world's largest collection.
Which I've been driving by for 35 years. That's why I say stay alive. It's worth it. because it's always something extra. It's amazing. You just learn this stuff, So I obviously I'm going to come back with on this family vacation with a bunch of fancy uranium glass. Now the question is it really radioactive? Now I have a good friend, very good friend of mine, in Utah, and actually he's in Arizona. His company's in Utah. Laser Compliance, good friend of mine, known him for many years, and I mentioned it to him the other night, and so he sends me a picture on his phone. There's uranium glass, and of course, who else would know people with Geiger counters? But I know I have a dozen with them. But there's a Geiger counter, and there it is. They're leaning against, yeah. Oh, Casey Stackson. Casey actually, he's helping me do a thing with the, amongst other things, he's he knew Ivan Dreyer, the guy from Laserium, and so there's a chance we're bringing some Laserium back too. A lot of stuff going on out here. TV program, Laserium, it's all in a day's mischief. But thank you, Joe, for bringing it. I would have never imagined. So cool. Oh my God. So
cool. Johnny, thank you very much. And I think it's the highest purpose of the jukebox is to throw a little 3D spotlight on interesting subjects.
And you always leave us better. And I absolutely appreciate that very much. And everybody knows that. It's a fantastic thing. ANAGLYPH jukebox is fantastic. So thank you. Thank you once again. And now we'll be on TV. There's some kid who's creeping around at 1 a.m. who's going to see us and learn more stuff and learn about the point of being in New York, make stuff happen, right? Thank you once again. So now now we're a little video sample from our friend Harold BAIZE of a lot of AI on this show today. So today is. Harold, are you out there? We're going to show this, and then we'll have Harold talk about it a bit. Fascinating, amazing. Or imagine that old card sitting around, waiting for it to be put into a Holmes viewer, and then...
Ouch! That hurts!
Oh, please, aren't you tough?
Look, I know how the rabbit gets in the hat, and I still enjoy it all the time. That is tremendous. Harold, you want to talk a little bit about that? Thank you, Harold. Thank you for showing up today.
Yeah, it happens to be one of the cards in my small collection. It's from 1899, and the title of it is The New Woman Barber. And I animated it using, of course, an AI model, LTX 2.3. And so first I took the card, scanned it, took the best of the two images, cleaned it up in a photo editor, ran it through the AI model 30 times until I got one that I liked, and then used Owl 3D to convert that video back to 3D. And interesting thing about this is it's done entirely on my computer. It's not over the internet.
That's incredible.
And the model is open source too, so it's free software in addition.
What a great time to be into 3D. My goodness gracious, right? You thought the 50s was the boom. Man, this is just the best time of all. It's absolutely incredible. Now, in terms of the prompts, just briefly on that, how did you modify the prompts? Well, okay. Yeah. Do you have your first and your last prompt? That would be interesting.
Yeah, I went through some changes. First, I had to think of something for the person to say because the title doesn't have either person speaking. So I thought, well, he's going to say ouch, and then she should respond and say, hey, toughen up or something like that. So I wrote that out in the prompt. And it's sort of like doing directing. You say, first the person looks at the other person, then they say something.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Just basically you're directing them. Right.
Yeah.
Like in your brain, right? You have this whole direction. That was a great little prop. And it was so subtle and nice what you did. You could have made that mean. And you didn't, Harold. And you didn't. It's cute. It's cool. And it's cool just the way it is. You could have made that mean in a minute, but you didn't. Goes to show what kind of guy you are. But it was fantastic. I'm gonna move into another step in AI. Of course, Herb's magic wand as he conjures cats for April Fool's Day and beyond.
Okay, so this is a color photograph of a cat celebrating April Fool's Day. And just for people who haven't seen these cats before, these are generated using Midjourney, and then they use Owl 3D to convert them to stereo.
And he's the jester, I see.
Yes. And when we're done, I'll put the link to the book in the chat.
Please
And
do.
so this is a color photograph of a group of cats celebrating April Fool's Day. And I don't know why the cat in the front isn't wearing his ears, but anyway, this is what it is. And this is a color photograph of a cat playing a trick on other cats for, excuse me, for April Fool's Day. And this is a color photograph of a cat playing a trick on his human for April Fool's Day. And this is a color photograph of a human playing a trick on his cat for April Fool's Day.
And that was a random human. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
A random human with a random cat. Boy, it's getting a high five. I love it. Thanks again, Herb. Thanks for taking us on his. It's the most peaceful part of the show, Herb. Yes, you've inherited that. You've done that to us. It knocks me down 10 levels. It's incredible. I absolutely love those. That's why it's going to be a regular sequence because it makes sense. Today's guest is Professor Steven Pinker. Steve is a world-renowned author and has so many accolades. I prefer that you just look him up, but don't look him up right now. Stick with the show. He's got a new book out, latest book. Whenever it's a long one, it's a long title. When everyone knows that everyone knows, common knowledge and the mysteries of money, power, and everyday life. It's available on Amazon and any place you can get a book. So welcome, Steve. Thanks for coming by to visit us again. So let's start out off with the glasses-free monitors, and you can tell us what you discovered with that. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Welcome, man.
Thank you. Yeah, so I've been interested in depth perception ever since I did my PhD thesis on it, on how people visualize 3D space. For more than 30 years, when I teach intro psych, first at MIT, then at Harvard, I bore my students with an entire lecture on depth perception and stereo. I think they should be interested in it. I try to make them interested in it. Whether or not they are, I'm interested in it. And one of the things you have to be interested in if you're interested in stereo is the gadgetry. Just how do you get the two images corresponding to the two eyes views onto some medium. And then once you have it, how do you then show it where you direct the left image to the left eye and the right image to the right eye? So I'm going to talk about these in opposite order. I'm going to be a bit of a professor now and put up a slide. There we go. So I'm going to talk about two new technologies that kind of intrigue me as a cognitive psychologist. Starting with how you display 3D, in particular microlenticular glasses-free monitors, and then I'll talk about how you capture it in the first place. So we all know that there have for 150 years been different ways in which you get one image into one eye and another into the other eye. We all know about these things: the Holmes viewer and the ViewMaster. Got various gadgets with mirrors, and of course anaglyphs, glasses, the red and cyan, but they all have limitations. They restrict your field of view, except for anaglyphs, which lose a lot of color. And in all cases, you've got to have some kind of headgear or eyewear, which means that you can't just walk by and enjoy a stereo image. And you also, if you want to share them with your spouse, with your friends, with your dinner guests, you got to force them to don some kind of headgear. And people don't like doing that. So I think now it's a very exciting time. We have a technology that is I think the future of stereo. It is stereo nirvana, stereo heaven, stereo utopia. And that is microlenticular glasses-free monitors. There are a couple of companies that make them. There's Acer and I think Samsung has one. My favorite ones are from a Chinese company called Proma, and I've become very good friends with Fenghua Zhou in China. And I have one here. This is a laptop screen, but you can also get them in larger displays. Let me just put this away. Yeah, so this you can't, of course, obviously you can't see it on your screen, but if you're standing in front of this, it pops into vivid 3D. It's 4K resolution. It is saturated color, high contrast, not too much ghosting. And it doesn't have to be, this is a laptop screen, but I also have a couple. I have a monitor here, which is 27 inches. And I also have what I think is really the holy grail for stereo nerds is a 3D stereo slideshow on this 28 inch diagonal monitor where I walk by, my wife walks by, and you get my 3D photography is just displayed 24/7, just like having a photo on a wall or a slideshow. So these are amazing. How do they work? I was naturally very curious, and it's actually not that complicated. It requires a lot of computing power. Let me put my PowerPoint back up. But it's basically come on, here we go. It's basically the kind of like those the Winky Jesus cards that you would get in Cracker Jacks boxes with columnar lenses and the image sliced into even and odd columns, one from the left eye, one from the right eye, and each lens directs the strip underneath it in a slightly different angle, which ought to correspond to your left and right eyes. Now, the Cracker Jacks prizes were pretty coarse, pretty stripy, but now you have micro-lenticular displays, and as this diagram from Acer shows, here of course it's blown up, but the pixels, the even and odd numbered columns, and the columnar lenses are microscopic, so you can't see them. Now, the extra tech is that there is a little eye camera built into the top of the monitor that tracks where your head is, where your eyes are, and so in real time, it adjusts whether the even numbered columns or the odd numbered columns are placed under the even numbered lenses or the odd numbered lenses as you shift. So you can shift your head, you can move your eyes around, and it stays popped in 3D. Anyway, I highly recommend them for anyone who's a stereo fan. This is the way to display stereo photographs. So I'm going to turn now to how you get the stereo images into the system in the first place. And I've used just about every technique. They have advantages and disadvantages, but again, there's a new technology that could revolutionize everything. So when I started in stereo photography, I was there's nothing to photograph outside. The weather was rotten. It was a New England winter, and I wanted to take some pictures. And I decided to try stereo, which I had been, lecturing about for years. And I like macro photographs of flowers, such as this one right over here, which again, you can't see it in depth, but if you were here in this room looking at the laptop screen, it would pop out. And a simple way to do it is with a focusing rail. I'm sure a lot of you have tried this. You put your camera on the clamp, take a picture, then you slide it over with a stereo base about the separation of two eyes, a little bit less if you're closer. And you can get, especially if you take macro shots of flowers, you can feel like you are an insect inside the flower. So, Johnny, can we show the first portfolio of shots? These are the very first ones that I took about 25 years ago, my debut in stereo photography. And for those of you seeing the ANAGLYPH as opposed to the side-by-side, Naturally, necessarily, you lose some color. I chose the Dubois algorithm for converting them, which I found the best. This one here of an iris, those colors came through pretty well, but you see the nice depth from the focusing rail. Next one is what do we have here? Oh yeah, so this is a called a Jimson weed, and it's literally a weed that I picked up from my garden, and I thought it was strikingly beautiful. Supposedly it's hallucinogenic. I did not test that theory, but so my gardener told me. Here I did it in pop-out stereo just for the fun of it, also the focusing rail. Next. Another Jimson weed. I don't know why some are purple, some are green, and this one I just zoomed right in on the throat, and so you really feel like you're an ant and can enter the flower. Again, the color is not too bad in that. Next. And this is a Rose of Sharon, which is a kind of lily. Here the color is way off. It's the Dubois process converted it to a purple, which is kind of nice, but the original is a shocking pink. That is an inverted lily. Again, for those of you seeing it side by side, it's a vivid red, lost in the Dubois, well, lost in any conversion that uses red and cyan glasses. And next.
Now, how are you setting these up? Because it's all black and white. Do you have a place to shoot these?
Yeah, I have a piece of black velvet that I just tape up on the wall, and this was shot with a flash off camera on an extension cord, so it doesn't have that garish look. So the flash I think I held up to the right. This is a petunia. Lost some color, but you get the shape and some of the vividness. That's a tulip. In real life, it's red. Dubois turned it purple. And
These are great anaglyph jobs you did. Let's mention that these are beautiful.
They're from Stereo Photo Maker Pro, and I tried all of the different mappings, for, all the different I found the Dubois the most versatile across a different variety of photos. And that's a Stargazer lily. Again, I for the fun of it, I had it pop out of the frame. I also have a version that with where it recedes behind the frame. The pistils in real life are a saffron orange. Okay, then I'm a photo geek, a photo slut. I tried various kinds of brands of equipment, and if you're an insane photographer, then you buy Leica equipment just because it's so beautiful, has a nice tactile feel. And one time on an auction, I saw that Leica made briefly in the 1950s a stereo lens. I won the auction, and here it is. I mean, Leica cameras are insanely expensive, and this lens was insanely expensive. But as you can see, it's got two built-in lenses. It's got a baffle, a kind of septum to separate the two images, and then you get two portrait format half images on a single frame. And then it also comes with an attachment with two mirrors because here the stereo base is pretty small, so this is good for the macro shots that I love, especially if you put a close-up lens. But then there's also this thing, people call it a beam splitter, but it really isn't that. It's just a set of mirrors that increase the stereo base when you're not up close. So it gives you, I think it's a pretty standard 65 millimeter separation. Because nowadays digital cameras have such high resolution sensors, you're not totally restricted to portrait format because you can do a crop pretty aggressively, and so you can get landscape, throwing away a lot of the information. It comes out cross-eyed, and then of course Stereo Photo Maker Pro can flip it. There's a little bit of vignetting, but again, you can crop that out. So, Johnny, let me show you just some of the pictures that I've taken with the with the Leica 1950s stereo lens.
Yeah, that Leica attachment, is that something that's still available? Do you know, or is that's a
No, it's well, it's available if you scrounge
yeah.
eBay and the auctions,
Yep,
but ha
got
has
it.
not been made for 50 to 60 years. Still,
Okay.
it's Leica, so it's pretty good optical quality. If you get it, I sent mine to be cleaned because it did have some haze. Okay, so this is the Medici Chapel in Florence, and so this is an example of what you can take with that Leica lens. And I think you got yeah, pretty. I'm deliberately showing ones that have pretty decent depth.
How many
Uh,
megapixels is that camera, or is that film? That's a camera.
it's
That's a digital camera.
60 megapixels.
Ooh,
And so that means that each half image has 30, but it comes out pretty good even after you do some cropping. This one's cropped a little bit, but it's still more portrait than landscape. That's a kind of a cowrie shell that I found on a beach in Hawaii using not using the mirror attachment, but using a screw-in close-up lens. Get a little closer. Next. Oh, that's in Florence. That's a statue of Neptune, and an advantage of the, uh, the like a dual lens as opposed to the next method that I'll talk about, the cha-cha method, is that if you have something in motion like these fountains, then you can capture it, and the water fountain itself is in 3D, and the each droplet can be sharp.
it looks great.
That's a close up the praying mantis that landed on the rail of my house.
Now this one you really got to work with your eyes, right? Like you're
You
best to
do
look
have
at
to
this
work.
guy's
Yeah, this one
noggin. Yeah.
I pushed it to the limit, maybe past the limit. Not everyone can see it. At least I mean, it's easier in anaglyph. It requires a little bit of concentration side by
Yes.
side. Yeah, that is true.
It helps if you have some WD-30 to put his eye drops, but nonetheless, no, only kids. It's great. It's great.
Yeah. And there's another, that's those Greek gods were always raping one woman or another, and they thought it was worthy of sculpture in those days. But this is in again in Florence. Sculptures, of course, are great things, great subjects for stereo photography because they're 3D.
I always find the brass ones just don't show up very. The
Well,
metal.
problem with brass, I think sometimes is that you get because one thing that it doesn't replicate in stereo photography compared to real life is that because of the patina on the brass, the luster in real life means that the two images differ in ways other than 3D depth. So you get a kind of binocular luster that is not real in a stereo photo of something that's got too shiny a surface. And here we've got Perseus cutting off the head of Medusa, complete with blood dripping from her severed head, at least as replicated by, I think this is Bernini. Again, this is from Florence, but sculpture is just a fantastic subject for 3D photography.
So this went through Stereo Photomakers. Did it go through Stereo Photomaker? It did. Or no?
All these I put through Stereo Photomaker for the alignment, for the cropping. Yeah.
Yeah, because generally when you look up like that, like you get a little bend in, but it looks great because you're pointing up, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yes. Okay. Now, clearly the lowest tech method is when I learned it, I learned it as the astronaut two-step because apparently it was used by the Apollo astronauts so that some of their photos from the moon back in 1979 can be viewed in stereo. But when you have no specialized equipment with you, you can always take a photo, shift your weight to the other leg, take another photo. You're just not shifting too far apart unless you want to get hyper stereo, which I sometimes do. And some of these shots, I've put that to an extreme. One of the great things I've learned about the cha-cha or the two-step method is that sometimes when I go through old portfolios that I've never got around to processing. Sometimes I realize that I can use them as cha-chas after the fact. But a lot of photographers, especially in the digital era, where the images are cheap, unlike film. You take a picture, you take another one just in case, you take another one just in case. And what happens is, because a human body isn't a tripod, your weight shifts a little bit from one shot to another at random. And so some of my portfolios turned out to allow me to use the cha-cha method, even though it never occurred to me at the time. But afterwards, with the help of Stereo Photo Maker Pro, I took two images that were shot a few seconds apart. They happened to be a few centimeters apart, and they worked really well in 3D. So let's see some of my cha-cha shots. Okay, so this is not cha-cha. This is there's the same technique, but rather than shifting my weight, this is Horseshoe Bend in northern Arizona, not far from the north rim of the Grand Canyon. This is really one of the wonders of the world. I'm really proud of this hyper stereo shot where rather than cha-cha, I took one shot, and then I walked about 10 feet to take the other one, not knowing how well it would turn out. But as you can see, this landscape pops out in 3D. The shadow, interestingly, is not completely aligned with the rock, probably because just in the few seconds that I walked from one vantage point to the other, the earth turns, the shadow moves, and so the shadow has a little bit of false depth because it doesn't fall in the exact same place in the two images. And our brain is unbelievably sensitive to a binocular disparity. So something moves even an arc of a degree from one image to another, in this case, just because the world turned, and you see a little bit of depth in the shadow. Anyway, it doesn't bother me. The fact that you can see so far into the distance in 3D is anyway, it gives me a lot of pleasure. What you do lose from this, if you're seeing an anaglyph, of course, is the brilliant red rocks of Arizona, which can't come through in red-green anaglyphs. Although the Dubois process renders it, a little bit rusty. So
Now, do you recall what you did you recall what you tried to aim at?
I aimed at that promontory, the center of the thing in the middle of the
Yeah, and
horseshoe.
you can see the strata in there, so you can kind of
Yeah.
even yourself. Did you try to do that, like even yourself out with the strata, like try to make it so that
Yes,
you had?
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, 'cause you don't want now. Of course, Stereo Photo Maker Pro gets rid of any vertical disparity, which is, of course, very distracting and annoying when it survives. So it does the alignment, but of course, you don't want to have too much vertical misalignment because then you lose too much material at the top and the bottom. So yes, because a lot of digital cameras now, most of them you can have a viewfinder display with fiducial lines with a grid or some kind of level. Then I pick a landmark and I try to have it in the same part of the grid in the two shots so that it's not too out of alignment vertically. Okay, so this is accidental cha-cha. This is the Hudson Yards still under construction in New York. Just at random, I had several shots that I took just in case, and I combined them after the fact. The stereo effect I think is pretty good, but what this shows, and so I think a little bit of hyper stereo, but here you see one of the effects, of course, that you sometimes get with hyper stereo, and that is miniaturization. So those vehicles at the front, they are not toys, although they look like toys. And in fact, the whole thing is not a model railroad set, but the real Hudson Railroad yards and some of the construction equipment in the foreground.
what were you on the High Line or something? Where'd you
Yeah,
get that shot?
that's right. No, actually, it wasn't from the High Line. I think it was from the what is it called? The Nest. That
Yeah,
big,
okay, yeah, that big performance space, right?
yeah, that big performance space.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And what do we have next? Oh, this is the Provincetown breakwater. I spend some of the summers and a lot of time in Provincetown, Massachusetts, the very tippy tip of Cape Cod, and that's a breakwater that goes off to the hook of Cape Cod. And this was a kind of cha-cha shot at night. And it again shows one of the possible artifacts, although I really kind of like it there. The clouds look kind of like a ceiling, like a shelf, and the stars are visible behind the clouds. Now, I mean, of course, the stars are behind the clouds, and the clouds really are overhead. But part of that ceiling-like appearance of the clouds in 3D comes from the fact that the clouds, moved a little bit from one shot to the other. That movement meant they were in a slightly different position of the frame, which of course the brain interprets as depth. And so we've got a somewhat artifactual cloud ceiling. Although, clouds are overhead, so it's not too bad. And I just like the way it makes the night sky, stars and all, kind of backdrop. And of
Yeah,
course, this is a perfect subject for 3D photography because the jetty just extends off into the distance. The
and that was just a cha-cha, or
Well, it was a little bit more than a cha-cha. There was a kind
mm.
of gate to this to the jetty with a kind of platform on one side, platform on the other side. So I placed the camera on one. This was a bit of a time exposure, then placed it on the other. So a little bit a bigger stereo base, maybe about 6 feet more than you could get just from Cha-Cha.
It really it's interesting because to me some of the stars are on the other side of the clouds, the ones that are close. But it's
Yes.
just but it's just a beautiful picture. It all works, you know.
And the that light there again in for those of you seeing probably most of you seeing an anaglyph in real light that is a red lighthouse, and so those seeing you side by side will see it as red.
Oh, that's right, folks. There we go.
Okay, this is also in the Medici Chapel. This is looking up at the inside of a dome, a cupola. This is Cha-Cha where I kind of accidentally overdid it. I probably stepped a little bit farther from one image to the other, and so it's a little bit exaggerated in depth. It might also require a little bit of work, especially for those of you seeing it side by side, to converge properly to get it to fuse. But anyway, I find a very intriguing amount of depth. So this is on the floor. It's really high overhead, and I zoomed in and did one step then the other.
It's real, it's really interesting because when I look at it initially, the end of that looks like it's coming at me.
Oh, really?
And,
Oh, it
and then
flips?
the brain finally fixes it and it pushes down the hole.
Yes.
Like when I
Well,
first look at it, my brain thinks it's coming this way, you know.
well, I'll talk about that in a few minutes. All the different cues that the brain uses for depth that can sometimes, usually if you're seeing a 3D scene, you're not on drugs. All the cues align. It can be disconcerting when one cue points in one direction, another in another. That's why stereo window violations are considered such a sin in stereo photography. That if you've got the 3D surface that is broken by the edge of the frame, then your stereo vision is telling you one depth and all the other cues to depth, since this thing has been chopped off in an unlikely place, are telling the brain a different depth. And
Well, I
that's
thought
what
this was, I figured this was some kind of trick you threw in there because you're a brain guy. I only got one to experiment with. You've experimented with a couple. So I thought, oh, this
Yeah.
is clever.
No, that was not intentional. That was just
Okay.
before the brain. Sometimes just takes the brain a while
It
to
does.
get everything aligned.
And
Um,
once it knows it, when I go back, it knows what's supposed to be right. So that
yeah,
effect kind
then
of withered away. I don't get it anymore.
that's right. You can't unsee it once the brain puts everything together. So this is the Duomo in Florence, and this is again a cha-cha showing one of the again a disadvantage of the cha-cha method is that if anything moves, if it moves a tiny bit, then the brain gives it a fake depth. If it moves more than that, then you get ghosts. In this case, I didn't mind too much because of the people moving around, even though they are kind of ghost-like, but it gives you a kind of a sense of the bustle. So you kind of see it all almost as a kind of movement. Okay, then, but if you don't want to have all the artifacts of Cha-Cha, and especially if you're taking anything that's moving, then following one of our members, George Themelis, Dr. T, who's often in these shows, recommended twin compact cameras. These are Sony RX100s, and on an inexpensive rail you can get from B&H Photo Video with a cable that synchronizes them. An advantage of this is a pretty inexpensive little gadget here that just allows you to have the cameras side by side, is that if you are taking something far in the distance and you want some hyperstereo, you can separate them. And so you can experiment with a stereo base. And pretty versatile because the cables allow you synchronize them pretty well. So let's take a look at some photos from this
And
setup.
when you're doing one of those wide cha-chas, do you have a frame of reference that you use? Like when you're trying to get something in the distance, do you
Yeah, so
count off, have some kind of mental?
yeah, so
Uh,
I do. As we were speaking about before, I do pick a landmark just for one reason to make sure it isn't too um, vertically disparate, which can be quite disconcerting, but also to make sure that I don't lose too much of on at the edge of each frame. So there's a little bit of toe in. Of course, the problem with too much toe in stereo photography is that the backgrounds then are not fusible, and that can be disconcerting. But for things in the distance, it's a pretty small effect. So yeah, I sometimes do converge so I don't have to crop too much off the edges. So this is called Dark Hedge. So the next set of a month apart, one to Northern Ireland and another to the Netherlands. So this is a feature in Northern Ireland called the Dark Hedges. It's a row of gnarly trees planted a couple of hundred years ago. And of course, for a stereo photographer, this is an irresistible subject for stereo because it's got so much nice depth in it.
did
So anyway, a well-known feature of Northern Ireland that tourists go to.
did you do any touch up in Photoshop or in regular Photoshop to because they
Just
look so interesting.
well, adjusting vibrance, a little bit of. I don't crop. I crop in Stereo Photo Maker Pro, but mainly just a little bit of a little bit of clarity, a little bit of vibrance. Okay, this is, oh, so I should mention that I'm married to Rebecca Goldstein, who's a novelist and a philosopher, and among her interests is the 17th century Dutch philosopher Spinoza. So our trip to the Netherlands was partly a Spinoza tour, looking at the houses that he lived in, and one of them had these quite remarkable Rijnsburg outside of Leiden had a set of beautiful Delft tiles that I found quite intriguing. As it happened, I took this at a bit of an angle, so there is a bit of a stereo effect, but I just loved this detail from the 17th century that they put into these tiles. Next. Okay, and in the Netherlands, you got to take prototypical Dutch images and Gouda cheeses. That's as Dutch as they come. And this in this cheese store, pleasingly arranged at right angles, great for a stereo photographer. Next. Oh, here we're back in Northern Ireland. This is in Derry, or the British call it Londonderry, a nice row of cannons. And conveniently, a couple of birds flew overhead, and the cables connecting the cameras synchronized them pretty well. So we've got the birds in flight hovering in midair, as well as the cannons receding in depth. Next. This is called the Giant's Causeway, another major feature of Northern Ireland, where lava cooling pulled apart, and because of just the features of 3D solids, they form these hexagonal columns. Again, picked for this display just because there's so much three-dimensionality in them.
Was that anybody you knew out there?
No, those are just random fellow tourists. Again, we're in Northern Ireland. This is just offshore, not far from Giant's Causeway. Next, and
Yep.
and what do we have here? Oh yes, and this is the cheese shop in Amsterdam, very Dutch scene, but I like being able to peer deep into buildings with stereo photography.
Oh, this is great.
And now we're back in Northern Ireland, and we've got a bunch of kittiwakes who cooperated by flying in a nice three-dimensional pattern. Again, the the twinned cameras are good at capturing motion, or capturing
Now,
depth, even if things are in motion.
yeah, did you pull out the? Did you extend the two cameras, or did you just?
Here, no, I don't think I needed to do that. Yeah, I think they were just as close
It
as they
worked.
could,
Yeah.
which is a bit of hyper stereo because you just can't get the cameras to within the two lenses to within 65 millimeters of each other. There are gadgets where you turn one of them upside down, then one of the cameras to get the skinny parts of the cameras butted up against each other. But I couldn't find one of those. So all of these are a bit, a tiny bit hyper stereo. Next. Oh, when you're in the Netherlands, you got to take a picture of a windmill and bicycles. So this has both bicycles and a windmill, both popping out.
You got them.
I got them. Yeah, uh, the Netherlands smiled on me. I just liked again the three-dimensionality of the lobster traps and the stone wall. This is from Northern Ireland.
Now tell me this: is your wife patiently waiting behind you, doing something else while you're doing this?
She is so patient. Yes. So thank you, Rebecca, for all your patience during these shots. The advantage is that because well, we of course went to a lot of Spinoza sites for her, but the advantage of being married to a photographer is you get to go to a lot of really scenic places because I always gravitate to them. Like this back in Northern Ireland again. This is hyper stereo. This is the two cameras separated because otherwise you would not get any depth. And I think you should be seeing some depth in those distant cliffs, and that would not have been possible without some hyper stereo. And again, being a tourist in Amsterdam, you got to have a canal with of course bicycles and a houseboat.
It's a great shot.
And a canal gives you some depth. And Ireland, as any tourist knows, including Northern Ireland, has an awful lot of ruined castles. So here's one on a promontory, again giving you a pleasing amount of depth to capture.
Yeah, that to me that seems like it's almost like a sandcastle. It's so
Well,
you,
yes,
you must have had
actually,
these guys. Yeah.
I think that had a bit of hyper stereo, and the I don't know if you want to call it a price, but one of the effects is miniaturization. Probably because if you see something with more stereo base than your own eyeballs have, you get a nice sense of depth. But on the other hand, the brain doing the trigonometry unconsciously figures you must be looking at something small if you're seeing depth with your ordinary eye separation. And so you get some miniaturization with hyperstereo. And another cliff in Northern Ireland. You see there's some luster in the water that isn't quite a little bit disconcerting. And part of that is also that this is taken with polarizers. And it's hard to get two polarizers and two cameras in the exact same orientation to filter out the same amount of glare from the surface of the water. So that slight difference between the two images, your brain is just so good at registering the slightest difference between the two images. And so you're probably seeing a bit of a luster there. And the rope bridge. I mean, who could resist if you're...
Yeah, that takes a moment for my eyeballs to but I get it. No problem. Do you know the people on the end of the rope under the bridge? Do we still have Steven? We'll stand by. I thought I heard him break up a little bit. If you see him come back in, let me know, and just let him in.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye out for.
Yep.
Sorry, are you hearing me?
Yeah, I hear you perfectly. No problem.
Okay, yeah, my Zoom froze and crashed, so sorry about that.
No problem at all. We thought you fell off the rope bridge.
Yes. So here's the rope bridge. So this is it actually is not as creepy as it looks in the photo, but But anyway, another
Yeah.
depth. Oh, this is Spinoza's gravesite. And the side by side gives you a little bit of the bas relief. I think that's probably a little looks a little deeper than it is than it really was in reality. But the that's his family symbol. Spinoza, originally Espinosa in Portuguese. They were from the uh, refugees from the Portuguese Inquisition, a Jewish family that escaped the Portuguese Inquisition and the expulsion of the Jews and ended up in Amsterdam. But Spinoza means it means spines, the spines on or the thorns on a rose plant, and the BS is for Baruch or Benedictus Spinoza.
So this was you were facing down on this?
Yes, I should have mentioned that. Yes, this is pointing
Okay.
down. Yeah, sorry.
And you didn't put all that little the stuff in there. This was just the
No,
way you didn't set it
that
up.
little
Gotcha.
bits of stuff that just landed in it. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And that's Rebecca next to a Spinoza monument in Amsterdam. Uh,
Rebecca the patient, if she was
patient, although she got to see a lot of Spinoza sites. So, there is, which I'm fascinated by as well. Everyone loves Spinoza, and I love Spinoza too.
what is that thing to her
That
right or to our
that
left?
that icosahedron. I don't know why Spinoza loved proofs that were kind of geometric, like Euclidean geometry. That's a sheer guess. I actually don't know why they put an icosahedron next to Spinoza.
Interesting.
This is sorry, I'm lurching you back and forth across the channel. We're back in Northern Ireland. Again, one of the nice things about the side-by-side twin cameras is that you can catch things in action, like the curl of the wave, as well as the I think there's a little bit of three-dimensionality in the arch. And yeah, I mean, if you're in Amsterdam, you got to get tulips, and so this is a tulip bulb store. Tulips are us, all tulips, all the time.
Oh, it's great. It's beautiful.
Again, anaglyphs, the color is weird. You're seeing a lot of purple, a lot of green, whereas in real life there's a lot of red and yellow and green and real green.
Yep. Well, the folks who are
For
on
the
stereo
side-by-side
pics are
books.
enjoying that very much, I'm sure.
And this is Spinoza's desk with a little port in the house that he lived in Rheinsberg, with you see a little portrait of him.
Oh,
And
okay.
and a reconstruction of his library in that glass case. Those are not the actual books that he had, but some collectors from I think it maybe his will saw which books he owned and bought exact copies from the same era of as many books as they could find.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Wow. So detailed. Oh, that's brilliant.
Okay. Now, the ultimate way of generating stereo pairs where you don't have to have any special apparatus at all. And well, I gotta say, having invested so much in all of these gadgets, all these different ways of capturing side-by-side images. I'm not sure if it's cheating to let the AI generate the stereo pair from a single 2D image. It's kind of like what's the fun in that if you don't get to play with all of these lenses and cables and stuff. But still, there are circumstances in which the AI can give you stereo images that you can't otherwise, such as underwater. I don't know of any underwater stereo cameras, whereas any camera that can take underwater, the AI will generate a stereo image, and I'll show you a few of those. But also, if you just didn't take stereo two images in the first place, and then also as a psychologist, I'm kind of interested in, what's the trick? If ordinarily you need two image capture devices to capture stereo images, but obviously if the AI can generate a pair, the information must be in there in the first place. And so I was intrigued by just how these algorithms work. So I'm going to.
That is the question. We've had on the show a lot of young people who are getting involved in 3D that have never used a 3D camera.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Which
So this, I don't know whether this is going to be whether everyone's going to you don't need 3D cameras anymore, but I'm going to show you a reason that maybe you might, since the algorithms are not foolproof. And we all know that current AI, basically deep learning networks, hallucinates. It just, makes stuff up. Just the other day, someone sent me, they asked AI who I was married to. The AI said I was married to a woman who happens to be my worst academic enemy. So this could be like a situation comedy. Anyway, that's just one example of an AI hallucination. And in stereo, I'm going to show you some cases where the AI.
But it made you laugh. You see, that's the beauty of it. If it
well,
got
that's true.
thank you.
Yeah.
So
thank you, AI. Yes, thank you, AI.
All of that way. Okay, I'll put it up there.
So I'm not going to be, I'll try not to be too much of a professor, but I'm going to give a little explanation as to how how AI does this miracle. Well, it isn't really a miracle because, we know, how does AI generate a stereo pair from a single 2D image? Okay.
One moment while I lift that out and F1 thing, bang. There we go. Oh yeah. Now we were just discussing the pelican that doesn't exist.
Okay, the pelican doesn't. There's the pelican. Okay, so you guys are seeing a pelican, right?
Yep.
Okay, so that pelican was shot as a single image in 2D, and Owl 3D generated the third dimension, and it's pretty convincing. I think it's a pretty good shot. The background is separated, and the pelican has a 3D contour. Doesn't look nothing. So this is a pretty successful case. So the question is, how does it work? So I'm going to switch now to, let me see here.
Yeah, I could stop the share and have you explain, and then go back. It's no
so
effort for me at all.
Can you? Okay, am I back? How does AI
You're back.
generate?
You're perfect.
You're seeing my image. Okay, so it's actually, when you think about it, not that much of a mystery, because as any psychology professor explains to their class, we don't need stereo imagery. That is, you don't need a binocular disparity to see in depth. There are a whole bunch of monocular depth cues, which is how you can see in depth even if you have one eye closed. The world doesn't suddenly flatten. I mean, it's missing something when you're using one eye, but you still see things extending in depth. And I'm going to just give a really quick kind of micro demonstration of something that's in every intro psych class, namely monocular depth cues. So shading is one of them. So here's the idea behind shade. It's called shape from shading, and it depends on a simple law of physics, namely that when a light source is at right angles to a surface, the light is concentrated on a nice bright spot. But as the surface changes its angle from the light source, the light is smeared over a larger and larger area, and it gets fainter and fainter.
Oh shucks.
Am I?
You're back. You're back. No problem. Keep going.
Oh,
missed a word. You're good.
Okay.
You're good.
And anyway, the brain kind of then inverts that process. It goes from differences in lightness to what it guesses are differences in depth. Now, that's geometrically impossible, but the brain makes a couple of assumptions. One of them is that the light source is coming from above, because that has to go into the equation. And that gives rise to some illusions like the pimple-dimple illusion, where the discs at the top are the same as the discs on the bottom, except rotated 180 degrees. We see the top ones as pimples, the bottom ones as dimples. And if I turn this upside down, the dimples become pimples and the pimples become dimples. And that's simply because the brain just, by default, making an assumption, which is usually true, that the light source comes from above. That's how it kind of solves for the 3D shape. That's also why when you're a kid around the campfire and you put a flashlight under your chin to spook people out, it's because it makes your face into a grotesque 3D shape because the brain just generally assumes light comes from above. When light comes from below, the actual perception of the 3D structure of the face therefore changes. Another thing that the brain assumes is that the surface has uniform pigmentation, so that any difference in lightness it interprets as a difference in surface angle. And this answers a question that puzzled me since I was a kid, which is, why do women wear makeup? My mom would put on makeup. I said, why does painting your face, like a clown, make you, more attractive? And the answer is that the makeup, if it's applied skillfully, kind of fools our shape from shading analyzers into changing the actual shape of the face. Oh, before I go to makeup, this is a meme that went around the internet a couple of years ago. My student sent me. Is there a seed or no seed? This is a pitted avocado, or is it? Is that could actually be seen as an indentation where the pit has been scooped out, or some people see it as the pit's still there and protruding. Here, if you turn it upside down, generally the here I think it is a pit receding in depth. Here, that is a scooped out. Here is this looks like the seed is protruding. But anyway, let's go back to makeup. So if you put some rouge on your cheeks, assuming it's done subtly enough, that is a way of the brain interprets it as a kind of bit of a shadow. And so that's a way to enhance the appearance of cheekbones in 3D as if they're casting a bit of a shadow. Then conversely, if you want something to pop out, you put white powder on the upper lip, that changes the appearance of the surface angle of the upper lip, and that gives you the kind of pouty, duck-lipped model look. So again, the makeup, of course, it has to be, the brain is really, really good, and has to be applied artfully in order to fool the brain into not just seeing pigment, but to seeing shape. If it's done not so subtly, some of you who were around in the 80s might remember Tammy Faye Baker, the wife of the televangelist Jim Baker. And this is an example of when makeup goes bad. Some of the other cues, texture gradient. Here, even just these little vertical lines, you see something extending in depth. This is a more realistic picture where this is something you can't get just by looking at one spot on the image, but by comparing a gradient of the same general shape, but getting smaller and smaller as you get higher and higher in the image. The brain interprets that in terms of the perspective geometry of a simpler interpretation. That is, it's not like the sunflowers are getting teensier and teensier as you go from the bottom to the top. Rather, they're all the same size, but they're extending in depth. So this is kind of the raw, and then linear perspective. This is technically a trapezoid, but you see it as a tilted square because the brain likes simplicity, it likes parsimony, it likes symmetry. So even though that technically is a tilted trapezoid, you can see it as a nice regular square tilted in depth, and the brain prefers something with right angles, even and interprets it as tilted in depth. This is why you've got rows of lights and stripes painted on runways. A pilot is suspended, thousands of feet in the air. He really, really, really has to perceive depth properly. It's kind of a life and death matter, and so they exaggerate the perspective on the paintings on and lights on airport runways. So this is, and interposition. We don't see this as Pac-Man nibbling a square that is impaled by a triangle, but rather a full circle behind a full square behind a triangle. Again, the brain likes parsimony, simplicity, whenever it can get away with it. So anyway, this is raw material. It's a solvable problem to generate depth from all this information in 2D. And okay, here's a real life example of interposition. And so how does it do it? Well, this is basically the input to the AI algorithm. Imagine 8 million numbers corresponding to the lightnesses and colors of each pixel in the image. The question is, how do you get from this to a pair? And the general answer is a neural network. So if you imagine that each one of those disks at the bottom is one of the pixels coming in from the image, each one of the disks at the top is the position of the pixel in the other image, the right eye image as opposed to the left eye image, then what a neural network does is if some of the pixels are on in the input, it turns some of the pixels on in the output. Now, if this is all you had, it would be kind of hopeless because even if there are patterns in those pixels, like gradient of texture, like converging lines, converging lines might just be converging lines, and changes in shading might just be, Tammy Faye Baker's makeup. So to actually get it to do it properly, you need an extra hidden layer that can compute some intermediate information, or 3 hidden layers, and modern AI can have like 70 or 80 hidden layers that do higher order computations. That is, not just 2 lines converging or a bit of shading, but they take into effect the context, the other cues, and so on. So that's the general idea behind it. Oh, and I should just mention, how do these things learn all those connections? Well, sometimes they're trained on a, whoops, I don't want to take me out. I want to take the PowerPoint out. There we go. So sometimes there are databases of a single image and a depth map. That is, for each pixel, the ground truth of how far away it really is in the world, as sensed by some kind of LiDAR or other way of sensing its real depth. But more conveniently, there's all these stereo films out there, all these pairs of a left image and a right image, of thousands and thousands of frames as the people move around, the camera moves around. And so instead of trying to get the AI to predict directly how far away something is, it just has to predict the right image given the left image. And there's plenty of material for it to be trained on. And so it tunes the billions or trillions of connection weights between those artificial neurons. So it gets to abstract the patterns of shading and perspective and interposition, and converging lines, and can reproduce what the right eye image should be like given the left eye image. What it also has to do, though, because it's not telepathic, it's making a bunch of guesses. You move a subject a bit over in an image, you've got this gap left behind where you've moved the pixels over. What do you do then? Well, then the algorithm also has to be smart enough to synthesize the slice that's missing when you move one part of the image over to create the other image. But we all know when you use Photoshop, when you use content aware fill, when you use cloning, when you use healing, that there are already algorithms that can extrapolate the texture to fill in the gaps. Anyway, so that's the theory behind it. Let's switch now.
And that's not getting any, and certainly it's not getting any worse, right? It's only improving by the speed of the computer.
No, that is right. Yes, and the amount that and the amount of material that it's trained on, and just the sheer, as they say, the compute. That is the number of layers. One thing I didn't mention is when you have all those layers, how do you train them? That's a whole other lecture. But yeah, it is getting better and better, but still not perfect. Really, really good, but not perfect. Let's look at some examples. Okay, so we've seen the Pelican.
Yep.
And this is a real success. I mean, I think this is a pretty impressive.
Yeah, there's no way you would not. I've been doing this for many years, and I would not know the difference. 100%.
Well, and I think what's impressive is that there are 2 kinds of depth that it computes. One of them is just the separation of the figure, the animal, from the backdrop, the sand dunes. But a pelican is a pretty complicated 3-dimensional object, and so the wing, the bill, the neck, the head. You see there is depth in there, and it's I think, to be honest, I think this is a little bit exaggerated in depth. I think this pelican is a little bit more kind of squashed and elongated from its left to its right than it was in real life, but it's a pretty subtle distortion. I mean, that looks pretty good. Okay, so this is a lot of so the ones I'm going to show you now, by the way, from now on, are all going to be underwater shots where again you have no there is not a good technology for underwater stereo photography. So you kind of most of us are stuck with one camera, and if you want stereo, it's AI or nothing. And I've also chosen a bunch of since this is NY alluding to the NY and NYSA presents. I've picked some of my 2D New York photos over the years for particularly concentrating on 3D New York, like scenes where they've just got lots of great, 3D geometry and depth, and I let the AI add stereo depth to it. So this is one taken from Brooklyn Heights.
Oh, sorry.
Courts. Yeah, no, that's okay. So you have these are the athletic courts that are from the old Navy Yards in Brooklyn Heights, looking across the East River to Manhattan. And I think this came up pretty well. Although if you look at the light to the left, the lamppost, um, the left from your point of view as the viewer, it looks like it added a bend in depth that it's not a flagpole as it should be sticking vertically up, but it looks like it's kind of leaning back into the picture, and that is an AI artifact.
But you know what? But to the left, now you drew my attention that way. But look how the people look in depth.
They're
the people to the right on the dock there.
On the dock, yes.
I mean, yeah, the pole is funny, but man, those people, yeah,
not bad.
No, not bad at all. Heck.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so this is the Tagaluma wrecks in Australia, where they sank a bunch of ships, let them rust, and the fish love to hang out in big 3D structures. And so I was snorkeling with my camera in a waterproof enclosure, and then used AI to give back the third dimension. So this fish is not bad, but if you look at it, it's a little bit lumpy in a way that real fish aren't. Like the top of its head and back have a wiggle in depth that is, and likewise its tail, which should be a pretty flat plane, has got some wiggles in it. Now, a fish is, I suspect there are not a whole lot of 3D movies that feature fish, maybe from Nature IMAX films. So I don't think the AI has been trained on a lot of fish. Now, it's not the fish per se, because it doesn't know a fish from anything else, but just the particular contours that fish tend to have and how they are visible in the subtle texture gradients across it. So here, at first glance, yeah, it looks like a 3D fish. When you start to study it, you see that it's got some bends and some lumps that are not exactly true to life. But still pretty good. Oh yeah, so this is a black racer snake. I hope we don't have any snake phobics in the audience. I had to experiment with this with a bunch of different settings for the Owl 3D because it made the snake those wiggles in the snake too exaggerated, and it made the snake a little too kind of flat as opposed to kind of cylindrical. But this one isn't bad. I think the depth is probably exaggerated a tiny bit, but not bad.
Not at all. Oop, hold on.
This is in Cape Cod. Okay, New York 3D. You got to do the Brooklyn Bridge. That's a nice three-dimensional New York scene, and I think that came out pretty well. Again, it's I haven't traced the cables too carefully. Actually, I do see an artifact there. One of the cable on the left is broken for no good reason.
Oh yeah, okay, a little yeah, but you're right. You have to be directed to that. And if I wasn't aware of that, I would just assume that's the way it was. Yep.
Yeah, no, you shouldn't fetch too much. It's pretty good. Okay. Yeah, where are we at here? Oh, 3D New York. How could you not do the Santiago Calatrava Path Station? Beautiful 3D structure. The clock in Grand Central Station, which, by the way, plays a role in my book when everyone knows that everyone knows, because this is a famous example of what do you do? I'm switching out of the realm of photography now, but what do you do if you're separated from your spouse in New York, your cell phone is dead, you haven't made plans to rendezvous? Where do you meet up? You got to figure out not just where you think is a good place to meet up, but where your spouse thinks is a good place to meet up. That's not enough because you got to figure out where she thinks you think she'll go and whether she thinks you'll think she thinks you think you'll go. And according to a famous paper by Thomas Schelling, a guy who won a Nobel Prize, he predicted that most New Yorkers would pick the clock in Grand Central Station, even if they hadn't been separated anywhere near the clock, just because they had to pick something that each one could guess would pop into the other one's mind. So these are called focal points, sometimes called Schelling points after Schelling. And so I was at the original Schelling point, took the picture in 2D, OWL 3D, I think rather beautifully converted it into 3D.
Gorgeous.
Okay, now this is an interesting AI fail. So in Greenwich Village, I saw a dragonfly on the sidewalk and photographed it. Now, as I think quite a beautiful dragonfly, but you can't help but notice something that was not there in the original scene. Namely, the AI could not grasp that the filigree of the dragonfly's wings were transparent, and the texture of the sidewalk is something that you're seeing through the dragonfly's wings. And a dragonfly's wing is a pretty unusual structure because it has all of that contour, all of those veins, but it's also transparent. And so the AI took the texture from the sidewalk and it brought it forward and merged it with the veins on the dragonfly's wing. So here we have the world's only dragonfly with concrete wings. Aerodynamically unlikely, but kind of an interesting, if artifactual, 3D effect.
Yeah, that's what happens with the AI stuff, though, right? It generates stuff that is not right, but is sometimes very amusing and interesting, right?
Yes, exactly. And you probably all can see another AI artifact. Dragonflies have pretty straight bodies, kind of thoraxes and abdomens. Here we've got a kind of caterpillar curl in this guy's body, even though in real life it extended straight behind. And 3D New York, how can you avoid the Flatiron building? The AI didn't give much depth to the building itself, probably because it's so far in the distance, but certainly the taxis and cars in front of it pop out. And this is in Hawaii. This is again something that only the AI can do and did really well, I think. I mean, here we've got a green turtle above the seabed, and I think it's floating rather pleasingly. Hermes on top of Grand Central Station, another beautiful 3D New York landmark, and I think the AI did a pretty good job in giving it its 3D. Pretty impressive, considering all the surfaces and contours and nooks and crannies. But they all came out pretty well, including that guy or that woman on the right. You can see through the crook of her elbow. You can see the building in the backdrop receding in depth. So again, it's pretty impressive. Okay, so here, some of you are familiar with Winston Churchill Park. Now, granted, this was kind of unfair for the poor AI, but there is a 3D sculpture there. A kind of, I don't know if it's a sundial, but the feathers on the arrow, the fletching, that got a totally artifactual wiggle in depth, and those nested spheres got some weird potato chip wiggles in them.
Yeah.
Granted, an abstract sculpture is, the sculptor can do anything that he wants with the 3D object. It doesn't conform to the usual surfaces and contours in natural objects. So maybe it's not surprising that the AI, having been trained on boulders and broomsticks and bodies and all these things in the world, you throw at it something that a human invented that has a 3D geometry that doesn't necessarily isn't representative of the 3D objects in the world. And I guess it could be forgiven for guessing it completely wrong. But here, these wiggles, these potato chip things, and that strange unflyable arrow with the fletching, wiggling in depth shows how AI it is making guesses based on what it's trained on, and sometimes has fails. And again, another 3D scene, and that is, of course, Washington Square, the arch in Washington Square. There's Rebecca in the foreground, and you can see through the arch up, what is that? Is that Fifth Avenue? I'm sorry, I'm not a New Yorker. But anyway, that's extending in depth. Again, I think the AI did a pretty good job.
An amazing job.
And again, New York 3D, got to have a subway platform.
Now this was okay. So this was one shot. Of course, I got it. It generated. It looks pretty damn good, even for the fact that it curves down at the end of the fluorescent lights. Right? It feels like it's heading right down.
I had not noticed that. I couldn't. I think that is I think that's an artifact. I don't think it was curved in real life.
But it looks. You see, that's my point. It still looks convincing.
Yeah, well, maybe
it doesn't bother me. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that is I don't think perspective would do that, but yeah, no, you're right. It does. I mean, you have to study it pretty carefully.
So if you that's my point. It doesn't rob the joy. It doesn't rob any joy out at all. Yeah.
And of course, this is a scene. This is like your prototypical scene with a lot of monocular depth cues. Namely, all of those converging lines can be nothing but something extending pretty far in depth.
Right.
And look at the two subway tracks. They converge. If they converged in real life, the train would derail. But of course, we don't see them as converging. We see them as parallel, but just that perspective makes them appear to converge. And so this is lots of info for the AI to reconstruct the third dimension.
Actually, I feel like I'm waiting for the train. So I can get moving.
Oh, again, more 3D. So here is of course, the 9/11 memorial, including a rose that someone put over the names chiseled into the memorial, with the new World Trade Center in the background. Again, lots of depth in this New York scene. And for those of you not seeing it as an anaglyph, that's a red rose.
Well,
okay.
I tell you, I learned an awful lot. You know what else I learned about you, Stephen, and your work? You get around, man.
That's also true. Yes,
you get around. Wow, that was just absolutely wonderful, and thank you for spending that time with us. If you could spend a few more minutes, maybe there's some questions.
Sure.
How do we do with the with questions in the?
I haven't actually seen a lot of questions. I hope I didn't miss any. I've been watching for them. I think everyone's been just so captivated.
Maybe I left you speechless.
No. I mean, this has really been it's been so fascinating. Herb, did I miss anything?
No, Jim, I just had one question. I didn't really think it was that important, but there was a PowerPoint slide where Stephen talked about 5 monocular depth cues, and there were only 4 on the slide.
Okay, very good. So the 5th one, which I omitted, is motion parallax.
Okay,
and that is, and since we were talking about still photography, I ignored it. But that, by the way, that is probably the most popular monocular depth cue, just because there's so much information when you shift your vantage point.
Which would be why it's so much easier to convert a video to stereo than a still photo.
Yeah, and when you think about it, you look at the world from your left eye, you look at the world from your right eye, or if you only had one eye and you looked at it from this position and then you did the cha-cha and looked at that position, it's the same information. And so motion gives you even more information than stereo. But I chose not to talk about it in this.
Okay, well, thank you for.
Anyway, but I forgot to change that. But I forgot to count the number of cues in the slide. Yes.
Good job, Herb.
We did have a question. I guess I know your books do have some discussions of stereoscopic vision, but so the question is, are there stereo-related discussions in any of your books? And if you teach classes on this, but so maybe what are some of the highlights in your books about these topics?
So this would be how the mind works. So how the mind works, I indulged. I hope that I didn't lose readers in partway through chapter 5. I actually began, there's actually a story behind it. So I've always been interested in depth perception and in spatial cognition. And one day in the early 90s, I was walking around Harvard Square and passed the window in the Harvard Coop bookstore. And it was the first time I saw a magic eye stereogram. You've all seen those auto stereograms with the squiggles that when you stare at them long enough, especially if you stare through them, so that your eyes don't converge on a point behind the image or in front of it, it suddenly pops into depth and an 3D image appears that was not visible in the original squiggles. So I thought I was just dumbfounded. I thought this was the most amazing thing, and I could not, for the life of me, explain how it worked. And I vowed that I did not deserve to call myself a cognitive psychologist until I learned how those worked. And so I was at MIT at the time. I had some colleagues who studied stereo vision. So I asked them, they referred me to some papers on how they work. And so in the chapter called The Mind's Eye of How the Mind Works, I take the reader from the phenomenon of magic eye stereograms, which were a big fad in the 90s, as those of you who were around then might remember. They appeared in sitcoms, they appeared in comic strips, they're kind of everywhere. And so the hook was, how do these things work? And the thing is, you can explain an awful lot about human vision as you take them through the journey of how a magic eye autostereogram works. So yes, that is in there, and this is completely non-technical, but I take the reader by the hand as to how they work, passing through a lot of perceptual psychology en route. And I do that every year with my class. Again, more from, I think, my fascination than theirs. I love to talk about it, and they're stuck with me. Sorry, they have to listen, like it or not.
You know, the author Arthur C. Clarke, who, is a friend of mine, he had sent me my first one in 1990 through a fax machine. Through a fax machine, right? And but you're great, because he said, this confounds me why this works. But he said the same thing to me. He said, focus behind it. And I'm like, I didn't want to say to him, what am I, chameleon? How am I never focused behind something before. And it took quite some time. And I still recall looking at that. Well, and it finally worked. And it worked. It was just a ball. It was like a round thing. I still have it somewhere around.
Yeah. No, you can do any shape you want. But you know how a lot of people, some people kind of inadvertently train themselves without the autostereogram. So if you're standing behind a chain link fence, and you're not looking at the chain link itself, sometimes the two diamonds can, if your eyes are not focused on the fence, the two diamonds can drift together, and if they momentarily fuse, then you get a huge, an illusion of a huge chain link fence very far away. Likewise, I think this is, men have more experience this than women, but the tiles behind a urinal, you're kind of stuck there. You're looking at these repeated patterns. The tiles aren't so interesting. Your mind is wandering. You're looking kind of through them. Sometimes two adjacent tiles, one tile number 3 in the left eye, tile number 4 in the right eye can falsely fuse, and then you see very big tiles very far away. So that is basically the principle behind an autostereogram, and some people experience it even without these gimmicks.
What is your favorite illusion? Because you seem to be, I do the same thing. I enjoy myself. Like if I see two people, like the talking heads on TV, I merge them just for the hell of it, just to see the mouth moving. But I think once you can free view, you're fussing around like that. What is your most favorite? You must do.
I think it's got to be an autostereogram. Yeah, especially the random pattern autostereograms. There are wallpaper autostereograms, kind of like the bathroom tiles or the chain link fence, where you have the repeated figures and you just kind of like misbuttoning a shirt, you just falsely align them. But then the ones where it's just nothing but random squiggles, and when you first see it, it's just confetti, and then the 3D image suddenly pops out. As if from nowhere, sometimes called, the jargon term is cyclopean, the cyclopean eye,
right? Yes,
based on the monster from the Odyssey with one eye in the middle of his forehead. This is named by Bela Ulez, the brilliant stereo researcher. But this is the view of the world that you have through the hypothetical cyclopean eye in your brain that can see things that neither your left eye can see nor your right eye.
Well,
So there was
please
one
go ahead.
there was one question in the chat from Bob McAfee, and I think Joe guessed correctly. But Bob asked, "What are we seeing in the background?" And
Oh,
I believe Joe guessed it was your home, which is a very elegant home there.
well, thanks. Yes, I live in an area in Boston called the Leather District. So named, nothing kinky about it. It's so named because of it was a site of leather warehouses, and so we're in a residential loft converted from a leather warehouse. Those are some of my 2D photos in the background. I'm in my study now, and we live here. I have a job in Cambridge, and Rebecca moved here with me, and she's a New Yorker. And one of our I don't want to call it a compromise because I love it, but it's the part of Boston that's probably most like New York, at least visually.
While we're on the compromises, I'm doing my downstairs bathroom, and you have made an enemy out of my wife, possibly, because I think random downstairs wallpaper would be great. She did
Yeah,
the one
great.
upstairs. Yeah, I'm not even joking. I think it's brilliant. But yeah, no, you have been delightful. You are just a great
Oh,
guest.
oh, that's so kind of you. Thanks.
Anything else you
Pleasure to be
guys got?
here.
Any? I don't want to hold you much longer. Any more questions come up?
Yeah, I think we've gotten so many answers. We're going to be pondering for quite a while. Yeah, yeah, not a lot of questions, but I think everyone's just been totally
Well,
wrapped.
you
So,
have
yeah,
that was so much fun. You were so much fun. We're gonna have you.
That's right.
You're gonna live on our show. I got to get you on the Manhattan show. I can't wait. I can't wait. I can't wait.
Coming from you, Johnny, Mr. Fun, this is I take that as it means a lot. So thank you.
Oh man, really, you're fantastic.
I
So
have
a
a
big
question
a
actually.
question. Go please.
For your 3D TVs, is glasses free TVs
Oh
from
yes,
Chroma, right? Are
Chroma,
they
yes.
the glasses free passive? Glasses free 3D. Do you have any passive 3D? Because they sell one model like this too.
Oh, I don't. This is I see in the chat. I've tried the Samsung. I think I have not tried the Samsung. I think it's the same tech, same technology. I haven't tried that brand. I have one from Acer, and I have a couple from Acer and a couple from Proma.
Okay, and you say so. I have the tablet, the IQH, which
Oh
is
yeah, so the
really the
same.
first one.
Oh,
Yes,
that's
the
So,
right.
IQH 3D.
I
so
forgot
And
to
it's
show you this one.
is it
oh,
the glasses free monitors you have now from
so the
Proma? Are they way better regarding to ghosting?
It's actually it's pretty good. If you have a
Okay.
very high contrast image, then there is some ghosting, but it's not bad. It's pretty good. And
Okay.
unlike I don't know which I think the original IQH 3D that I bought, you have to be in a sweet spot.
Yes.
And if you move, then the advantage of these, and I think there are tablets kind of like the IQH 3D, where it has the eye camera and it dynamically shifts the two images so that you don't have to keep your head right in the middle staring straight on. You can
Mm.
just be yourself. Go like that, and the image changes with it. So
Oh,
that's a
yeah. And
huge
I
benefit.
So,
think that reminds me, there was a question actually in the chat of while you were talking about those glasses free monitors. Is
Hmm.
it possible to turn off the eye tracking or not at all?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So okay, that's another. So this is another important point that some of the early ones, by early I mean last year or the year before last, because the tech changes pretty quickly. Um, they were not very useful when you turned it off and you put it in 2D mode because the lenticular overlay meant that you couldn't use it really for text, for email, for web browsing, just because the text would be too fuzzy. There's no good way to if you turn off 3D, you don't get a sharp image. The newer ones from Proma, um, there's you can switch from 2D to 3D, and likewise the Acer. when you turn off the 3D, it's perfectly usable as a 2D monitor. So you can have the same monitor for your date, for your work, for your email, for your surfing, and for 3D. And there's in the case of the Proma models, there's a physical switch or a switch on a cable. In the case of the Samsung, it's a keyboard command. Alt G pops you into 3D, Alt T takes you back to 2D. That is, turns off the eye camera, turns off the lenticular overlay, so you can use it as a regular monitor too.
So one of the big problems with the glasses-free technology is its single viewer. If you have multiple viewers, then you and your wife can't sit there and watch the same thing at the same time, and that's the biggest reason that I like the smaller displays, but I'm not a fan of the big displays because it's just not yet what I'm looking for.
No, that is true. I mean, the big ones are still impressive if, for whoever's looking at it, but you're right, only one at a time because it can only track one pair of eyes and it can only, it can only display the columns as they should go to the two eyes of a single person.
Now, I know that at one point they were making glasses-free monitors that claimed to have multiple sweet spots. So you had to actually get into one of the sweet spots to see it. But I've never actually seen one of them, and I don't know how well they would work. But it sounds like they've stopped.
Yeah, so I actually tried one of those. I sent it back because it did not have the eye tracking, but you're right, it had the multiple sweet spots. So you could have two people who are kind of locked in place and each one would get 3D, or you could choose one of the vantage points. But that's much more of a pain in the neck than just being able to be yourself, to shift around, but with the disadvantage that it can only be you, can't be you and someone else.
Okay, great explanation. Thank you.
20 years ago, I got this thing. This is the Sharp. This was actually a Sharp. Glasses-free 3D monitor,
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Probably the
this
same
is
tech.
20 years old.
Ah,
Like I said, that's why I don't go to antique stores, because I got enough stuff here that has eventually evolved. It wasn't an antique when I got it, but it still works. It just works on XP. It goes how long that evolution has taken. And so we're really at a wonderful place.
Yeah, well, that's one of the perquisites of getting older. You start to have antiques, not because you bought them as antiques, but they turn into antiques.
Then you look in the mirror and go, there's another antique. Oh, well. That's what I tell kids all the time. I only got to look in the mirror like 3 times a day. Inside, I'm 25, but I look, oh, my God, I got to start acting more sure. Anyway, you have been, like always, you're so much fun.
Oh, well, thanks so much, Johnny. Very kind.
You're so much fun. I'm going to go buy some books of yours now because I want more of you.
Well, if I do say so, I always make sure that my books have some good jokes. So.
There we go. Well, look, thank you, Steve. Now,
thanks
thank
for
you
having
very
me.
much. You are so much fun. Now it's time for the caption. Should we do the caption this poll?
Well, I put it. I know we're running very late. I put that in the chat. I mean, we're just, we're so kind of over time. So.
Okay, I can share the screen if you want, but and I put the results, the link of the results.
But thanks everyone for entering.
Well, if you don't mind, Dorothy,
give it a quick share. I just know we're running so late. I didn't want to take up a lot.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you for thinking it so far down the line.
Yeah.
So we're not going to do that. Okay. So a big thanks, of course, to this week's guest, Steven Pinker, and Harold BAIZE for showing us more stuff. And of course, thanks to our amazing crew for making this all possible. Stereo Doro, Jay Kuznets. We'll be back soon. Jim Hart, Joe Pedotto, Paul Hutchins, Herb Weiner, and last but not least, you for stopping by to see what you've been missing in 3D. See you again next week. Until then, don't be stingy with your camera, no matter what you call it. Share your joy, count your blessings.